Okay, it being 9:03, we will call the meeting to order. Agenda additions or changes?
Dave, I have two things, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
So the first one is item number 5 on the agenda includes a list of bills that we'll be talking about. Discussion of legislative bills affecting the Ethics Commission, including Senate Bill 2004, 2052, and 1469. I'd also like to give the commission an update on House Bill 1601. So that is an addition to the agenda. And then the other addition is more of a logistical just note for the commission. The E&E section, the education and environment section of the House appropriations mentioned that they may take up our budget after the full appropriations meets this morning. And so that may be during our meeting. I did send them an email and let them know that we are in a commission meeting this morning. But Logan is monitoring, as you can see, he's monitoring whether that happens. And if that does happen, then we'll need to, Alicia and I will need to go and take care of that. So, but I don't know if it will. They just mentioned it at the end of their meeting yesterday that they may take it up. I did tell them that we are in this meeting now. That's it, Dave.
Okay, one of the options we talked about, if that happens and Alicia and Rebecca have to go, Logan will walk us through the meeting. But one thing we could do as a commission, and I think, would that work still, Alicia? Did you work out the logistics for that? We could take the meeting in as part of our meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, we can beam you guys in to the committee work meeting if needed, if they do go ahead and do that.
You would just be able to watch, though, not to
Right,
speak or.
right. So there's that option for us. We could either continue to do our business or we could watch the committee meeting as they work on our bill. It's unfortunate that they elected to take up, or they could. We don't know for sure yet, but it's unfortunate if they take up the bill while we have our actual scheduled meeting. So we'll play that one by ear, though. So let's continue through the agenda. Approval of the February 13th regular meeting minutes and March 7th special meeting minutes. Any changes, additions?
Dave, there's also March 18th.
Oh, sorry, I missed that part. Yep, March 18th, special meeting minutes.
I have a question
Okay.
as to why those ones for the 18th are put in as minutes when two of the commissioners attended the hearing. Is that just how you're supposed to do it, or is it just good business?
So Cindy, we weren't sure how many, if we would have had more commissioners attending online, we wanted to make sure we noticed it as a meeting just in case we did have a quorum of 3 commissioners. So since we noticed it as a meeting, we felt that in full transparency, we should make sure that we had meeting. Is it technically a meeting? No, it was technically not because there were only 2 commissioners. But if we would have similarly, or if we would have had additional commissioners online, then it would have been considered a meeting. So it was a covering to make sure that we didn't have any issues.
Okay, all right. I kind of thought so, but I just, thought I better ask. So I'll make the motion to approve the minutes as presented for February 13th, March 7th, and March 18th.
I'll second it. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved. All right, Executive Director's report with the budget update.
Just a minute,
Okay,
if I
go ahead,
can.
Ron.
Murray, were you just late with your approving, or did you want to? Okay. Never mind. Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, thanks, Ron.
All right, so I will hand it over to Alicia.
Okay, our current appropriation is sitting at $1,167,769. Expenditures in February totaled $51,525, bringing our total expenditures for the biennium to $907,991, and leaving a remaining budget of $259,777. Our projected expenditures through the end of the biennium are at $250,607, leaving us with a current estimated ending balance of $9,171. Any questions at all? One thing I do want to note is we do still have the total listed for all the forms we were doing. We had $4,500 estimated for all of those, and I do think that total is going to be less than what we were charged, so we will likely see a little bit of a increase in our balance as well from those ones we're done being charged for them, but I do see that being less than the estimated. So
Okay.
I just have one quick question. We've got materials, professional materials, Tribune and Forum, etc. Can we access those, or are those paper copies that go to the office?
So the forum has a user limit. Only 2 people have access to that. So the amount we're paying for is only for 2 users. The Tribune, we no longer pay for due to there's typically overlap, and we have access to those articles anyway. So we don't have the Tribune anymore. We actually canceled it about a year ago.
Okay. All right, that answers my question.
To get more people access.
I think we can look into it.
Ron, do you want us to look into updating that? Or
No.
getting at least a price on including more people?
No, well, like the forum, for instance, maybe you could see what the cost is, but
Okay.
I'm not that, it's not necessary that I read it, except, sometimes if there's an article about us, I like to read it, but you don't have to do anything except maybe just get the cost for more people. Because if it costs too much, I don't want to do it.
I think that would be a reasonable thing to do, since the 2 people who have access are Logan and I. And so Alicia doesn't even have access to the forum. So it is a very limited subscription. And if we add an education administrator, that is somebody who we're going to want to have access to as well. So we may have to look at an increase in that subscription regardless. So Ron, we'll look into that, and we'll get you guys those numbers.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on the budget? So Dave, am I good to move to the filing update?
Yes, you are, please.
So although we are in the beginning week of April, this was supposed to be our March meeting. I think this is the point at which I thank all the commissioners for giving me the grace to be sick and stay home with our very sick family last week. I would have much rather been here at the meeting, but it is what it is. So thank you for that, by the way. But with our filings, we did leave this just as the February filings. We did not add the March filings to this just so that we can stay consistent with our meetings and how we present information to the commission. So in February, you will notice we had a significant increase in complaint filings over previous months. We had 39 complaints come in. We had 3 quasi-judicial forms. 1 conflict of interest form came in, and then we had 21 meeting notices. So it was a busy month based upon mostly or a substantial portion of the increase in our pending complaints comes from the ones that were filed in February. So we had 39 filed in February, and so that brings us up to 90 pending complaints. Hopefully with all of the ones that are on the list today, the commission can clear out some of those. So any questions on filings that have come through in February? So I'm going to give the legislative update in connection with agenda item number 5. So if it's okay with you, Dave, I'll move on to education and outreach.
Okay.
Excuse me, my mic was off, and so I didn't get my voice in time.
Oh.
And sorry about that. As far as the complaints are concerned, those 39 complaints were all in February, correct?
That is correct, Ron.
Can you speculate as to why we got so many?
I'm looking at Logan because I don't know if I can. I don't think that we can do that, Ron.
Okay. All right. Just good. That just seems to be a lot. That it's maybe it's, and I'm speculating, maybe it's just that we are better known now, so maybe that's the reason. Or maybe it's because Murray's on the commission now.
Possibly, could be.
Okay.
So moving on to education and outreach. Our education and outreach efforts during legislative session have been minimal. We just simply don't have the bandwidth to be doing a lot of education and outreach during this time. So between last meeting and this meeting, we did have 3 chances or 3 opportunities that we did. I participated as a panelist as part of the Bismarck-Mandan Chamber's ethical decision-making panel. This is the 2nd year that I did that. It was a great panel. They pull somebody from education, from government, and from healthcare and talk about ethical decision-making. The individuals that are part of this day or who participate in this are individuals from the Bismarck-Mandan community who are going through a leadership program with the Bismarck-Mandan EDC. And so it was really it's always interesting. They always have a lot of good questions, and these are engaged individuals. And so we talked a lot about, they had a lot of questions about conflicts of interest specifically, and how that landscape and dynamic has changed for the legislature this session versus previous sessions. So it was a very good discussion with members of our community. Then last week on March 24th, I had a unique opportunity to present to a graduate level class at UND about public budgeting and ethical decision-making in public budgeting. Out of all of the Zoom presentations that I've done, this is the first one that I've talked about our budget and what that looks like. And the students had a lot of great questions. They asked a lot about conflicts of interest again, because they learned a lot about conflicts of interest in public service. And so this was a really fun, I really enjoyed this class, and I really enjoyed doing the presentation because of the questions that we got from the students. We walked them through the Ethics Commission's budget, how it happens. They had process questions, all sorts of things. It was a good presentation. Then just on Monday night, Logan and I had the opportunity to speak to the UND Law School's interns, legislative interns, including Patrick. Patrick also presented a little bit about the Ethics Commission, and he was our MC for the night. And this, we really focused on what is the Ethics Commission? What do we do? What don't we do? What are some of the challenges that we face? And it was really focusing on the legal side of the Ethics Commission. So that was it for our education and outreach. For future events, I am speaking with the North Dakota Medical Imaging and Radiation Therapy Board later in April. The other thing is that I did reach out to the Northern Plains Ethics Institute about holding a meeting or holding some sort of public forum in conjunction with their efforts at NDSU. And they were certainly welcome to that. They thought the fall would work well. They also then thought maybe we needed to involve the NDSU University in general. And so they put me in contact with the president's office, and we will work through maybe coming up with, and I take suggestions from the commission about what they want to do at NDSU. We can either do a meeting, we could do a, have a forum, we could do a meeting followed by a question and answer session, something that NDSU and the Northern Plains Ethics Institute are open to have those discussions and figure out something, but they prefer the fall because we're coming to a close on the end of the school year.
Well, let's see what they're interested in and then go from there.
Okay. Any other?
Rebecca, this is Murray. I know the general counsel and also the director of the compliance program who might be very interested. So I'd like to work with you on that. I know both of them personally.
That sounds great, Murray. So Murray, can I CC you on communications then?
Yes, please. And I'll give you the contact information.
That sounds great. Thank you, Murray. Dave, am I good to move on to the office updates?
Yes, please.
So earlier in the biennium, we've had two discussions. One of them I don't know if we had with the full commission, but the first one was roller shades. So you will notice in our office we have I'm trying to be Vanna White here on the video, but the shades in the back certainly do not block light, particularly when we use the Teams or use our video. It is very difficult to see. Alicia has done amazing and made adjustments on the cameras so that you guys can see us. I don't know if you remember when we first moved in, we were very angelic all the time. So Paul had us get a quote for new roller shades that would actually block out the light. And at the time, we weren't sure where our finances were and where our budget was because we were so new or so early in the biennium. But we did in fact get a quote for that, a new quote. The shades are approximately $2,500. If we were to replace the shades in the conference room, I would suggest that we do it throughout the office. It's what was the difference? It's an additional what?
It's 1,000 for just conference room.
1,000 and 1,500 for both. That way we don't have an inconsistency between the two spaces. And also then if we do ever decide to move walls, we don't have to worry about that in the future. But I'm just asking for that particular item that we take care of that before the end of the biennium. We do project that we'll have that small amount of $2,500 to do that, and it certainly will help with our video conferencing abilities. So the second one, any comments, questions, concerns on those?
I think we're all in favor of that, so.
Okay. I'll get a motion at the end. I kind of combined both of these, Dave.
Okay.
The reason that I need a motion on these is it's more than $1,000, right?
Okay.
So we have in the policy that the executive director can make discretionary spending of up to $1,000. We intentionally have kept that low so that the commission is well aware and well apprised of the spending. And so this does go above and beyond that $1,000.
Okay.
The other thing, all of you have been in our very transparent office. We do have quite a bit of glass that is in here. As we have more members of the public, as we have public officials, as we have lobbyists that are coming in that we are meeting, we do think that including some privacy film on a portion of the glass would be helpful. This would allow light to pass through, but then ensure that we have privacy more in the conference room, and then creating a little bit more privacy in what we call, it's our office space, but I call it the bullpen. It creates just a little bit more. When Holly and I first moved into this space, that was one of the suggestions to do right away. But because of the cost, we again put that off and wanted to make sure that we had those funds. So we did get a quote that you will see. All the quotes are attached, but you will see that privacy film quote. And that is around $2,600 to have that done. And the same individuals who put up our dirt walls, they're not actually dirt, they're glass, but who put up those walls would be the ones who installed the film on that. Any questions on that one?
I assume, Rebecca, that both of these you've worked with whoever in the Capitol building, maintenance or whoever does improvements or whatever to the facility.
I'll let Alicia answer the question.
Yes, we did work with the Capital and facility contact to go through the right channels that we need to go through to get them done.
Okay.
I'm assuming I didn't look at state contracts because we went directly to the head of facilities to ask him. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then, I will entertain a motion to approve commission staff purchasing roller shades and privacy film for the commission office.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Cynthia, second by Ron. Alicia, please call the roll.
Dave Anderson,
Aye.
Ward Kozer,
Aye.
Cynthia Lindquist,
Aye.
Ron Goodman,
Aye.
Murray Sagsby.
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, next item, Rebecca, legislative bills.
Yeah, so that wraps up the executive director's report for this month. So let's talk about the bills that we have been working on, following, monitoring. Just to give the commission a big overview, Patrick is monitoring several bills, kind of a plethora of bills that we're not necessarily talking about, but just monitoring those to see if they have any impact on the commission. So we have him on that. But on top of that, we have some specific ones that we want to talk about. So Senate Bill 2004, this is the commission's budget bill. So this is obviously our bread and butter. It is the thing that we are monitoring the most, that we may have to jump out and work on this morning. But just to refresh everybody's recollection, we started in the Senate, and the Senate approved our budget back in February. So that was on February 11th. So coming out of the Senate, they did add our educational and communication FTE on top of what the executive recommendation was. We also then worked with them very particularly about the case management system, and there was a one-time appropriation of $50,000 to take care of that. That was an ongoing discussion with us in the Senate because we were getting more up-to-date numbers throughout that process. We've actually went back and re-looked at that case management system again, and we do think the $50,000 is appropriate for a one-time, but what we do need to make sure is that we have a continuing maintenance of that system. And so we looked at specifically New Mexico because we're looking at a system similar to that, what they spend on a yearly basis to maintain that system. And so I included that updated ask in our request for an appropriation in the House. So that will be taken up by the House. So coming out of the Senate, we had everything that was included in the executive recommendation, as well as our FTE and our 50,000. We did have quite a bit of discussion in the Senate about the workload increase, particularly for our operations administrator. I think that kind of got lost in the weeds in the Senate, but there was the concern that they had and the questions that I got seemed to demonstrate that they were concerned that they wanted to make sure it was a continuing appropriation and not just one time. They never expressed concern about not giving it to us. So based upon that background, we'll recirculate or come back to that particular item once we're back in conference, or once we are in conference committee. So the House appropriations, our bill moved over to the House in February. On March 18th, our bill was held, or excuse me, there was a hearing on our bill before the Education and Environment Division of the House Appropriation. Myself, Alicia, and Logan all provided, actually, I'm not sure if you had to stand, did you have to stand up for that one?
For 2 seconds.
Yeah. So everybody provided testimony on that bill, and as well as Commissioner Sagsveen. Commissioner Sagsveen batted cleanup and provided some information to the committee on that bill. Both Commissioner Sagsveen and Commissioner Goodman were present at the hearing. I understand that since then, most of you have watched that hearing. During that particular hearing, the committee had a lot of questions about process and internal workings or internal procedures of the commission. I don't know if we got a whole lot of actual number questions about how much we're spending on things. The committee specifically did request that the commission propose potential amendments to address the issues with the complaint process. So what was asked of us was to bring a policy proposal regarding cleaning up our complaint process to the budget section of House appropriations. At that point, one of the other legislators who was a co-sponsor of 1360 did say the commission has already done that. They did that with House Bill 1360 and it was rejected. So that was certainly noted during that committee. I would not recommend that, and I guess Logan and I together probably would not recommend that the commission bring any sort of policy amendments on the commission's budget bill. The goal is to get a clean budget bill and get it passed and make sure that we have sufficient funds to do the work of the commission. I think adding any sort of policy is going to muddy the waters and certainly should not be introduced by the commission. So I would advise the commission against that. However, I did want to let you know that that was an ask of us that came out of that initial hearing. I would certainly want to hear from Ron and Murray as to their thoughts on that hearing. But that's what I have. Any questions, concerns? I'll take them.
Well, I would concur that we don't want to add any policy stuff to our budget bill.
Ron,
Any other-
you're
Questions? What? Any questions, comments?
Yes, excuse me. I, obviously, as Rebecca said, sorry, I've got a frog in my throat here. I was at the meeting or the hearing, and I felt that the presentations by our staff were very good. There was one point in the hearing where the members of the commission asked some questions that both Murray and Rebecca addressed, and I don't know what I want to say about it, but I was a little disappointed in the committee members' questions to us, but it's a fairly minor situation, so I don't feel I have to address any more of it.
This is Murray. My observations were that the committee was more focused on policy than it was on the budget numbers. And the most, following the presentation by Rebecca on all of the numbers, the committee members then pivoted to focusing questions on policy related issues. And in response to the question about, there were several questions about what takes so long to address the pending complaints. The response was that House Bill 1360 had been introduced, but was defeated in the House and then moved on to other things.
Any other discussion? Okay, thank you. I think, Rebecca, we can move on.
okay. I'm going to hand Senate Bill 2052 over to Logan.
2052 is the bill the commission pre-filed to add elected to the caption of 546613. That's the prohibition on lobbying by elected public officials for while holding office and for 2 years after holding office. That's in Article 14 of the Constitution. The bill was a simple one-word addition to the caption. I've said this many times over the past few months, but the caption's not the law. The bill did not change the law. Told that to the committee. They took it to the floor they rearranged some of the wording on the caption, which didn't really change much in our opinion. It just rearranged things. They took it to the floor, then the carrier had questions, so they brought it back to committee. We were called back to the committee. We prepared a breakdown of the bill for them to explain it another time. That's attachment 10 if you want to take a look at that we provided to you today for the meeting. Just a simple one-page document that breaks down what the bill did or didn't do. Again, it didn't change the law. There was further discussion, and then I guess the committee, it was the House Government and Veterans Affairs Committee. The committee decided that Legislative Council can take care of this in the technical corrections bill, so they gave it a do not pass recommendation in that committee, and I don't know if it was voted on the floor yet or not. I don't believe it has. It's probably on the calendar for today, so we'll just be watching that. But again, it's not a make or break bill for the commission by any means. We were just trying to give people some clarity. The committee thought that should be done a different way, I guess. So just stand by and watch what they do with it.
Any questions on Senate Bill 2052?
Yeah, so who just does the follow-up then, Logan? Do you just keep an eye on it to see that it does get over to Legislative Council for the technical stuff?
Yes,
So it's just
Cindy.
watching?
Yeah, it'll be 2 years. It'll be next legislative session. So just keep in touch with Legislative Council and make sure it is included next time in the technical corrections bill. So we'll just work with their office to make sure that that is in next session agenda.
But it is going to be a little, it's going to be a little ways out.
Okay.
Am I good to move to House Bill 1469?
Yes.
So House Bill 1469, this came out of the House with very few amendments, just some clarification type amendments that were approved or given the thumbs up from both our office and the Secretary of State's office. And so it came out of the House before crossover, went over to the Senate. We held a very short hearing on March 21st before the Senate State and Local Government Committee. Secretary Howe testified, as well as Representative Glenn Bosch, and then I testified in support of that bill. The committee discussed a potential amendment to Section 2 to clarify the list of contracts for the government entity, that it's limited to the government entity in which the public official serves and not all government contracts. We did ask if they want us to work on that amendment. It sounds like Legislative Council is going to be doing that. We really will stay neutral on that amendment. That amendment was not the intent, I guess, of what we were bringing forward, but it also is a reasonable interpretation or a reasonable limitation on what has to be disclosed. So we will stay neutral on that amendment if that moves forward. This bill was well received by the State and Local Government Committee. They had very productive policy related questions about what this looks like, how is it going to be implemented, how do we have access as the commission to this information, and we worked through those logistical questions that they have. So it was a good hearing, and we will continue monitoring that bill and answering any questions along with the Secretary of State, and then as well as Representative Bosch as needed. Any questions on 1469? So with that, we'll move to House Bill 1601. This is a bill that we have yet to talk about with the commission. I did have a chance to talk to Dave last week about this, and I did testify in support of an amendment to this bill. So if you look at attachment 12, that is House Bill 1601. House Bill 1601, really what it does, if you look at page 2, lines 6 through 17, what it does, and this was the version passed out of the House, I believe, right? It precludes the Attorney General from revoking a SAG appointment for an attorney who is in good standing and employed by particular offices. You will notice that the number or the list that is included in lines 9 through 17 are offices that are constitutional office holders. So under the current law, there could be an instance where the Office of Attorney General can revoke without approval of one of these individuals a SAG, meaning a Special Assistant Attorney General, who has been employed under contract or in their office directly, somebody in those offices. So this bill was introduced as kind of a clarification or ensuring that there were separation of powers between these particular constitutional office holders. They are all in the executive branch. And so as part of this bill, there was an amendment, and you will have that amendment as attachment 13. There is a proposed amendment that includes the Ethics Commission to this bill. The reason the Ethics Commission is included is because the Ethics Commission is not a constitutional office holder, but a constitutional office or a constitutional entity. So you will see, it's not the full amendment, but you will see on attachment 13, it includes the Ethics Commission. Actually, I may have attached the wrong one. So there were two amendments. I apologize, Commission. I attached the wrong one here. This one is including the Water Department or the Department of Water Resources and not the Ethics Commission, but the one that was introduced did include the Ethics Commission. So I provided testimony in support of that, and really it's to prevent a situation where we have Logan designated as a SAG. We certainly want to ensure that there are separation of powers, that the Office of the Attorney General could not unilaterally terminate or revoke that SAG agreement without the Commission's consent, or at least working with us, where right now that does give them, I'm not saying that they would do that, but certainly the way that it is written, it does allow for that. So it puts our attorney and any future attorneys that we may employ, including those under contract, it really can put them in a very difficult position, knowing that somebody in a different branch of government could potentially revoke their SAG. So that is why we provided testimony in support of House Bill 1601. Did I articulate that correctly? I feel like I did not. So commissioners, I apologize, attachment 13 it should be, you'll see there's an amendment ending in 2001, and there's an amendment ending in 2002. The 2002 one includes the commission, and that is the one that I testified in support of. Any questions from the commission?
No, I think it's important that we're included in that bill, like the other constitutional entities.
The committee really, the state and local committee understood why we were included in the amendment. It made sense based upon the rationale for the other elected constitutional offices. While the commission is certainly not elected, we are a separate constitutional entity. So that same rationale applied to the commission. They did seem to understand that very quickly.
Okay, good.
Any other questions on House Bill 1601 or any of the other bills that we discussed?
No, I think we're ready to move on.
Okay. All right. So moving on to item number 6 then. This is the discussion of the proposed travel disclosure rules. So if we all reach far back in our memories, prior to legislative session, the commission had discussions about what we were then calling financial and travel disclosure rules. The financial part of those disclosure rules was really moved into House Bill 1469. So House Bill 1469 is the result of those travel rules or financial disclosure rules that the commission had been talking about previous to session. So with session approaching, with the possibility that we may have the statutory financial disclosure rules in place, they call them statements of interest, the legislature does, we really wanted to put this on hold in order to kind of make sure that we are moving in a straightforward path and we're not muddying the waters between legislation and rules. So with the end of legislative session approaching, what I am asking the commission for today is to go back and review these rules that we had somewhat drafted. We were also waiting on the logistics to ensure that we could do this. Alicia was working with NDIT to make sure that we had a web form that could be filled out and easily submitted to the commission to make these travel disclosure rules work. Alicia has completed that work. She has the web form. The web form is in a beta stage or a test stage.
Ready to go. Yeah.
Right. It's ready to go, but it's not published yet. It's not public. So that logistical IT question is checked off. We've taken care of that. And so really what we want the commission to consider is how do we want to go about adopting or looking at proposing or adopting these proposed rules. So the commission can do this on their own, meaning on its own as a separate rule, just the travel disclosure rules. The other thing is that the commission also probably needs to take a look again at the gift rules. And so the question that I have for the commission is the logistics of how we do this. Do you want to work on the travel disclosure rules in conjunction with potential changes to the gift rules? Or should we just move forward with just the travel disclosure rules? There are advantages and disadvantages to doing it either way, in conjunction or separate, alone. The downside is the additional cost, although Alicia has reassured me that we would have the funds to move this forward in a sole capacity as just the travel rules. That was a concern, but she has checked on the budget. We can do that, although then we would have a separate cost or two notices that would cost money. So really, I want to get direction from the commission. Are they ready to pick this back up and move forward with it? Do we want to do it in conjunction with the gift rules? And then what is the direction from the commission on this? We did table it for a few months, but now as we are soon to be within the next month or so wrapping up legislative session, we'd like to make sure that we can pick this back up. Yeah, so with that, Dave, can we have Logan just give a quick run through the rules overview?
Sure. Now, question. So are we talking about just doing the travel rules and gift rules as logistically, both of them separately, but doing it at the same time? Or are we talking about combining gift rules with the travel rules to make it one, I guess, one set of rules?
That is the question I have for you, Dave. Which
Okay,
way
all
you
right.
guys want us to go?
That's what I understood. Okay, very good. Okay, Logan.
And so
I-
it should be,
This is Ron. Before Logan starts, I'm a little confused, which isn't necessarily abnormal because I'm confused a lot. But I don't understand where the cost comes in. If we're just drafting rules, essentially there's no cost there. Where does this extra cost come in?
That's for the legal publication of the notice. So if we have any of those, they're around $2,000 per time we notice it. So if we did them as two separate, that would cost $4,000 instead of the $2,000 each. And we do have exactly $4,000 set aside still through the end of the biennium for those rules. For this biennium, excuse me.
Okay, so it'd be more economical to combine it, so there'd just be one notice to the public, correct?
Okay.
Potentially, Ron.
Ron, it depends on the timing. I guess the answer is yes and no. So if we did the gift rules in conjunction with the travel rules, it'd be one notice for $2,000 roughly. But that would probably be next biennium since we haven't been discussing the gift rules. But if we do them separately, we could do the travel rules, we could do the notice with this biennium's budget. We have the money set aside for 2 more rounds of rule drafting for this biennium, so the money's there. But the gift rules, yeah, that would most likely be in the next biennium.
Partially based off of the length too. So it might actually be more because we're doing 2 rules. So it might be more than 2,000 if we do 2, just because there might be more words in the publication. So it's not necessarily true that it would save that much.
Did that answer your question, Ron?
It does, but that brings up another question. And why does it cost so much to publish it?
I don't know. I know OMB actually works with the local newspapers to establish those rates. So I know the state works with them on that. I don't know how they come up with the amounts they do, but and they will be.
Okay.
I think they're
So
going to be going next biennium. So
it's a matter. The publication is where the cost is. In the Forum, the Tribune, the Dickinson Press, Minot Daily News, if that's what it's still called.
we go through the North Dakota Newspaper Association, and then they just make sure it's covered there.
I see. Okay. All right. No, I have no other questions.
Good question. So
I'll go through the rules. So I switched out the attachment this morning. We updated this a couple days ago, and there's minor updates. So I just wanted to walk the commission through it, what we've changed here. It still requires disclosure with the commission of third-party funded travel, which is travel that's provided in relation to the public official's duties or their status as a public official that's not otherwise reported somewhere in the state. So what the change is we added a definition for policy monitored travel. This is travel that is already reported somewhere else in the state. So most public officials will do this through PeopleSoft because official policy, OMB policy, or an internal policy requires them to submit that travel either for reimbursement or just for record keeping purposes when it is paid with an agency's funds. So we added that definition there for policy monitor travel. The public can get that information pursuant to an open records request. So we added it to simplify it, and then you see it appear here in definition 5. Used to define policy monitor travel there, but we just used the term. So that's the update to the definition section. Travel disclosure statement, nothing has changed here. By the 15th of every month, a public official would be required to report third-party funded travel to the Ethics Commission using that online form. And it must include items A through E there, on what the travel all entailed and who paid for it. Nothing has changed, like I said. Then we get into the filing and format. Again, it's an electronic form on the Commission's website. It must contain a written statement that is complete and accurate. The electronic forms are kind of fancy now because they have a signature block that Alicia worked with IT to add. So people actually sign it now. Again, nothing's changed in this section. Public access and retention. This is just how long the Commission will maintain things on its website. currently have it set for 3 years. And the travel form, again, is really kind of neat that Alicia goes in there and approves stuff so it shows up on the public end, so the public can just go and look through them without needing an open records request. Nothing has changed there. And then moving into the penalty section, this is where there's certain fees associated with late filing or not filing. A 6-day late fee, $25, 11-day late fee, $50, and thereafter $100. And if an amendment is needed because something is incorrect or incomplete, there's also fees associated with that, 50, 100, 200. And then the biggest change in this section, well, the only change in this section is the addition of this subsection 3 here. So reading through the rule as it was previously drafted, there's this gap where if a public official is not reporting travel that they're supposed to pursuant to OMB policy or a policy of their office, travel that's already required to be reported, I don't want to say it's a loophole, but I can't think of a better term. There's a loophole in the former drafts of this set of rules that if they don't report that, then they wouldn't be associated with a fine like there is for the third-party funded travel. So by adding this subsection 3, if a public official isn't reporting travel that they're supposed to be reporting right now to their office, the commission can also charge and collect a $100 fee. We weren't sure what to add there for the fee, so we set it at $100 because policies vary. I guess we can go back and look at OMB's policy and see what the deadline is for that. But this fee is really a fee if you fail to report. There's not a timeline associated with it because the policies can vary from office to office. So it would be a discretionary fee that the commission can charge of $100 when they're not reporting travel that they are currently supposed to be reporting. That might be confusing, so I'd be happy to answer any questions about that one too. But and then subsection 4, just how the commission will collect the payment obligation through the complaint process, civil action, or assignment to a collection agency. That has not changed. And then subsection 5, again, this hasn't changed either, but those fees would go back to the general fund when collected by the commission. Then the effective date, I think we previously had it as August 1st. We're not within the timeline now to get it done by August 1st, where they'll become effective on that date. So the current timeline, this is pursuant to statute and our rulemaking process. If the commission approves the rule, we go through the rulemaking process and approve the rule any time between May 2nd to August 1st of this year. It can become effective on October 1st. If it's after August 1st until the end of the year, I believe, then those rules don't become effective until January 1st of next year. So there's also a time component to consider as the commission considers whether to move this into rulemaking to get it approved and when you would like those rules to become effective. So what we're currently looking at as October 1st, but if it's after that August 1st deadline, then it moves into January 1st of next year. Any questions?
Yes. If we delay adopting these rules to save the notice fee, and then we work on the gift rules, would we be able to, it's by August 1st, we have to have that done, correct? If we give notice on both of those?
That's correct, Ron.
Yeah.
You have to finish the whole rulemaking process. So it would include notice, the comment period, the hearing, and then the commission finally approving the rule. That all has to be done before August 1st.
Can we meet that time frame with the gift rules?
If we include the gift rules, my best guess, Ron, is we'd be past that January 1st deadline. I think we'd probably be in the next quarter of 2026.
We'd miss the August 1st deadline, right?
I think we'd miss the August 1st deadline, but I also think there's a strong likelihood we'd miss the next deadline by the end of the year.
Okay. All right, that answers my question.
Dave, I have a hypothetical question.
Okay,
If a public official refuses to file any report for third-party travel and it essentially says it's none of your business, and a complaint is filed, and the complaint rules against the public official, is the maximum penalty $200, which the person may refuse to pay?
No, Murray, the maximum penalty for just outright refusing is going to be the $100, the way the rules are currently drafted.
Yeah.
It's only if there's an amendment that's required. So it is kind of uneven there, I guess I would say. Being if you are in good faith, or maybe not good faith, but if you're filing it and it's just not complete or incorrect, you might be subject to a $200 versus if you outright refuse to file it, the maximum is $100.
So we may need to look at those dollar amounts.
Yeah, and
Well-
keep in
well,
mind they're discretionary too. So the commission may, if you want to up them, it's always at the discretion of the commission how much to seek as the fee.
I'm just saying hypothetically, if a public official doesn't want anybody to know of third-party travel, that public official could just refuse. And if he's fined $100, I mean, who knows? I mean, who would ever know of that third-party travel? You're following my question?
That's a
Yes.
good point, Murray. Would you like us to add something if they willfully refuse, the fine is such an amount? I don't know how much the commission would want, but we could add a subsection there.
Well, when you're talking about the word loophole, a loophole is that if somebody really doesn't, a public official is getting paid third-party travel and really doesn't want to disclose it, $100 is a cheap fine to prevent disclosure. I mean, I don't know what the solution to that is, but that looks to me like a gaping loophole.
Yeah, and kind of I guess, questioning, remind me how in the heck we got to these amounts. I kind of remember our discussion and conversation because now looking at it now and I'm like, these seem kind of paltry. All of them. I mean, it's just arbitrary, but I don't remember. And is it just because when we first started talking about this rule, we just wanted to put a number? We wanted to arbitrarily put a number in there, but then what's for me, what's an amount that's really going to make people pay attention and, hey, do the right thing kind of, I guess. So I'm like, I don't like the amounts at all.
That's a good question, Cindy. The amounts, I believe, I can't remember exactly, but I think it was from campaign finance statutes. It's where we pulled the numbers from. But I also think the legislature was looking at increasing those amounts this session, if I remember that correctly as well. So
I have another question. How important would it be to adopt these rules so that we can have them effective in October?
I think just one more revision and the commission can change things too as we go through the rulemaking process before you do the final approval.
Well, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm going to interrupt, not because a great discussion, so I don't want to interrupt, but it does appear as though the E&E committee is considering our budget right now, or is doing committee work on our budget. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So Alicia and I are going to head down there if that's okay with the committee or with the commission.
Okay.
Do you want us to watch? Do you want me to put up the
That
video for
will
the?
be up to you guys.
Okay.
Dave, is that okay if we go?
Yes, yes. I guess the thing for the commission then is, should we continue our business or do we interrupt that and watch the hearing? Right now I've mixed feelings about that, but
I hate to delay the business of the commission, but on the other hand, that hearing is probably pretty important too. We've had so many delays in some of the stuff that we're doing that I'm concerned about that. And you know, that was one of the concerns of the committee that we met with.
yes.
When you were in the hospital, Dave. How are you feeling, by the way? I know that's off the record.
I'm recovering.
Okay. So I guess my feeling is I'd like to continue with the business of the commission, at least for a short time, so that we can get through the some of the agenda. On this one, I would feel that if it's not important enough that we adopt these rules now, I would like to delay this until, here I'm complaining about delaying, but then I'm talking about delaying. I'd like to delay this acceptance until we do some tweaking, like Cindy's suggesting, and until we work on the gift rules, because then we avoid that two-pronged notice fee, and we can publish both at the same time. Because with all of these rules, I don't think that the adoption is that urgent right now. And publication, you know, most people don't look at the publication anyway. So that'd be my feeling. At least get rid of this, and then maybe we could adjourn and go to the committee meeting.
Yeah. Logan, I mean, I agree. We could finish this item and we could save the executive session, and we can do that at another time. Logan, I'm unclear though. When we discuss travel rules and gift rules, are we talking about two separate rules, or is the discussion whether we should combine gift rules with travel rules?
So Dave, we're talking about two separate sets of rules. We currently have the gift rules, and
Okay.
what we're talking there is doing a full review of those gift rules, given the feedback that we have gotten from education sessions, looking to other states, what needs to change in the gift rules, what's missing in the gift rules, and how we need to amend them going forward to make them more clear for people in the regulated community, but also revisiting things like the $10 for informal public social events, those types of things. So it's separate from this set of rules. The idea was, though, if we just notice them at the same time, then the fee is less.
Yep. Okay. Now I understand. Okay.
Have the added complication, though, then, because you're noticing two separate sets of rules at the same time, where it could be confusing for people as well.
Yeah.
Because they are separate things. One's about disclosure and one's about accepting gifts, so they are different.
Yep.
All right, I want to jump in because I think these travel rules are significant and important. And my preference is we proceed now. They are two different things, as Logan just explained, in that, and based on our previous discussions, but based also on some other things going on in North Dakota right now. I want to see these travel rules proceed. And as Logan has explained to us, we have this draft. We've talked about this previously. It's a process, and so we'll have time to tweak it as we go through it. And my preference is that we do a motion to approve this draft so our staff can start working on it and get it into the system and the processes and that. And I'm sorry, but I'm really adamant about this one because of those other cases or circumstances that we are aware of.
So I agree. Would we want to add though there's that loophole that Murray talked about? So would we want our staff to tweak it to include that? And then look at the fines. Do we want to look at the fines again?
Yes to both. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So Logan, is it possible to do a motion where we would authorize commission staff to continue with the travel rules, tweak it with the loophole issue that Murray brought up, and look at the fines as Cynthia's talked about? Can we do a motion like that?
Yeah.
Or does the motion need to be that we're going to adopt this draft per our discussion? And then the staff proceeds with the tweaking and whatever. Logan, you'll have to tell me.
Very good question. It'd be nice, since the commission has those concerns now, if you'd like to get the fines in their not necessarily final form, but to prepare a final draft before we begin the rulemaking process, where those fines are set at what you think they should be when the rule is implemented, and to close that gap that Murray mentioned. So we have it in a good form for the public. So when we're going through the rulemaking process, everybody knows that that's what the commission is looking at exactly for the fines. So we're not changing it right at the back end when we adopt the rule, but as we're going through the process, everybody knows these are what the fines will be. So I think a motion to the effect of direct commission staff to prepare a final draft before beginning the rulemaking process on the travel rules. And then some direction maybe of what you would like those fines to look at like. I don't know if you want to double them or what, but that would be helpful.
Well,
I think
go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ron.
Well, I think, sorry. I think as far as the fines are concerned, I think it's best to wait until the end of the legislative session to see if there's some change in the fines. The fines being initiated in who are we following here? Dave, do you remember? What?
I can't remember where what standard we followed, but it was something that was already in. And it seems to me I remember the discussion, other than Murray's loophole where somebody refused to do something. I think our discussion was around the fines was that we thought that most people, especially since Alicia's done great work on making it simple to complete, is that the fines were designed as reminders. They weren't necessarily designed as as somebody who's willfully not filling out the forms on time and that kind of thing. And we thought routinely people will try to fill these out on time and there'll be a fine then because if they're not organized and they forget. I don't think there was any discussion about they were intentionally going to do that, but I don't. That's what I recall.
So Dave, I have a timing question for Logan. Logan, if this were tabled until the next meeting in order to address Cynthia's concerns and my concerns, would that unduly delay the publication process for 1 month?
I don't believe so, Murray. No, I think we'd be fine.
So I
Yeah,
move that we table this until the next meeting to allow proposed or amending the draft rule to address the penalties in the rule and also to address a deliberate refusal to comply with the rule.
I'll second the motion.
Hey, Logan, would you mind calling the roll call vote? Oh, wait, more discussion?
Yes, before we have the vote, I have a brief comment. Cindy's points are well taken regarding implementing these so that they get in place by October 1st. So I've given my thoughts on the gift rules and the travel rules being delayed until the next legislative calendar comes up. But I will agree with Cynthia, and I see the importance of that. So I think if we delay, so long as we delay it and then we still accept it so that they can be implemented by October 1st, that's fine with me. So I'm not going to object on that basis. So if you want to continue discussion until everyone has their say and then call the roll, that's fine with me.
Any other discussion? I think we all agree we want to move on this as quickly as we can, but we want to make sure it's complete.
Correct.
Yep, that's right.
Are we also in agreement that these are two separate things? And my preference is to keep between the travel rules and the gift rules.
Yes.
I think they should be separate and keep, because then we can deal with each one as is.
Right. That's
Okay.
The way I see it too.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Yes.
Okay, Murray made a motion. Did we have yeah, we had a second, so I guess, yeah, I forgot. Roll call vote if you can, Logan.
Sure. Chair Dave Anderson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ward Kozer,
Aye.
Commissioner Cynthia Lindquist,
Aye.
Commissioner Murray Sagsby,
Aye.
Commissioner Ron Goodman.
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, so now where we're at is Rebecca and I discussed now that since they're holding the hearing now, and I think Alicia and Logan have worked out so we can watch it. Is it better for us? What's the commission's feeling that we watch the testimony since they now moved it during our meeting, and then we can table or postpone our executive session? We could do a special meeting for that, or we can work that out. What are your thoughts?
I would say that we do a special meeting because in view of the questions we had at the committee meeting that we were at, that there is some concern about those cases that are still pending. I'd suggest a special meeting, but that would adjourn and go to the other hearing.
Yeah, I think there's some value to us as a commission, at least observing the hearing when they schedule it during our meeting. Any thoughts? Any other thoughts?
Well, they're in session right now, right? And do we have
Right.
any idea, Logan, how long it's going to last, or are you watching it too? Are you multitasking?
Patrick just informed me that Rebecca's speaking. The other thing I can do is I can just share it and that we can watch it as we're in the meeting here, as the commission's in the meeting, and just go from there and play it by ear too.
That would be my preference.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. The only thing is, at my age, it's hard to, I don't want to miss anything. So it's hard to focus on two things, but I feel we should listen to the hearing, especially Rebecca's comments.
Okay, I will share my screen then.
So we're looking at then 100,000 every biennium for maintenance.
Yep, I believe that is correct.
Mr. Chairman,
Representative Lauser.
Director, so just to be clear, are we building something from scratch and modeling it after another state, or are we subscribing to a vendor that is going to customize for our needs in North Dakota?
Mr. Chairman and Senate Representative Lauser, so to my knowledge, based on my conversations with NDIT, we're going to try and use a vendor and take something off the shelf and modify it. But after we've had a lot of discussions, we've showed them what we want. They are thinking that we might need to build something. And so their thought was maybe we could go to the company that New Mexico is using and see if we can figure out from there.
So again, Rebecca, just so maybe I didn't listen when I was writing my notes. So it's 100 grand for the maintenance. So does this open up a door then that you'll come back for 195 then for the full system? Because what is it maintaining?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I don't believe that we would have to do that. So there are updates that have to happen throughout the system. I am not an IT expert by any means, but what I did do is review the contracts that I got from New Mexico, and they have safety, security things that have to be updated as rules are updated. That's the other thing, is that as commission rules are updated, that system will then have to undergo updates with that as well.
So committee, just so you know, we're talking on in the ongoing funding changes on the line there, it says case management system, and then you see one-time case management system one-time costs. Representative Lauser, so we're talking up and ongoing right now, correct?
Right, yeah,
Okay.
we're in two places. One is to build or create the system, and that's, and I asked the question because if we had, let's say we had 100 complaints a year, we're automating the complaints through this system at a cost of about $500 per complaint just to maintain. And I'm trying to square where the value is.
So, Mr. Chairman and Representative Lauser, this would not be solely for complaints. It's all the filings that the commission receives. So this is not just the complaint filings. This is going to be the meeting notices that we receive, any other disclosures that the commission is going to receive, conflict of interest disclosures that we receive, quasi-judicial proceeding disclosures, everything would come into this system. So this is not just we call it a case management, but it's really managing filings.
How do you guys handle that now?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Lauser, she is sitting in the back. It is a...
What's her maintenance fee a year?
So, well, certainly we don't pay her enough to do that. So it is done, we use SharePoint currently, and it is done on a very manual basis, and it is inefficient and ineffective, and it doesn't work.
Okay. Committee, any questions on that while we have Rebecca up there on the, again, it's under the ongoing, we're not talking about the, well, I guess we are talking about the system. Representative Swantek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rebecca, on the system, you said it was comparable to, or the one you were looking at is New Mexico, correct? Mm-hmm. Are there any others that you had thought that may be a very good option as well? Or was that basically the main focus is on New Mexico?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Swantek, so we actually looked at several. Most other ethics commissions, and when I say most, nearly all, have case management systems where they manage everything. What we have to do, though, is we have to look at what other ethics commissions have similar jurisdiction and similar filings. And so we can't go and use the Florida case management system. That's millions of dollars per year. Florida also takes in filings on financial disclosures, where our Secretary of State is the repository on that. So that does save us quite a bit. So that's why we focused on New Mexico, is because their Secretary of State is their repository for information, and so it's very akin to what we do here.
So how does their caseload compared to what you're looking at, your caseload?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have that data right off the top of my head. Their complaints are confidential the same way our complaints are confidential. I don't have that data. Would I talk about comparable, meaning that we have similar jurisdiction over similar number of individuals, and then we have a similar population. New Mexico has a slightly higher population when it comes to their regulated community.
Representative Lauser.
We're okay covering case management. So I just had a couple other questions while Rebecca's here, and one would be the $50,000 in professional fees. I know you had a breakdown, but who are the professionals that are being hired outside the commission for $50,000?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Lauser, for professional fees, so we have a outside counsel that we have hired on a number of complaints, 8 particular complaints at this time. We have had to have outside counsel hired on as many as 10 complaints based upon conflicts that we have in our office. We've also had to hire an acting executive director. I myself have conflicts when it comes to complaints, so I have to step aside and recuse on those. So we need to pay somebody for that service. Then we also have a private investigator that we hire. We also, let me think, did I get it all? On what we currently have, what we've had professional fees on thus far. In the future, we also have a possibility of needing an acting general counsel. That hasn't happened. I do anticipate that could happen, where we need to have somebody step into that role. So we also have litigation costs that we may have to cover as well.
And so I don't know if this is something you can answer very broadly. If you have your own attorney, why are we hiring outside counsel?
Yep. So Mr. Chairman and Representative Lauser, so again, there are some things that I've had to step aside from, so we need an executive director. So we've had to use professional fees for that, right? But as far as the outside counsel, the particular complaints that those are assigned to, we did not have a general counsel in office at that time, and so then we needed to bring somebody on, and I did not want to, when we brought our general counsel on, all of a sudden interrupt that process, so we kept that counsel on. To be honest, it's one of the reasons we've helped get through what complaints we have gotten through, is that we need that additional time, just lawyer time in general.
So Rebecca, rather than going outside counsel, why not use the AG?
So Mr. Chairman, on those particular complaints that we have had to go with an outside, we've had an inherent conflict, or there's been a conflict of interest with the AG's office.
But if there wasn't an inherent conflict, would you use the Attorney General's office?
It might depend on the circumstance. I can't project if we would be able to or not. I think in some instances we might be able to, but the Attorney General's office provides advice to many of the people that we regulate. And so there could be a potential under the professional rules of conduct to have a... You
mean other agencies or other state agencies that they represent?
Yes, that's correct. Yep. And then we also have a layer of the fact that if we refer something for a criminal referral, they may have to be the ones who are involved in the prosecution. So we need to make sure that we don't have conflicts of interest in that regard. So each case is a bit unique.
Representative Lauser.
Okay, and then the other question that I had that wasn't in the Senate budget was the $50,000 rules implementation request that you had, but you're not going through the process of in some cases, are you going to the administrative rules process, or is this internal?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Lauser, so for the rules implementation costs, the commission does go through the Administrative Practices Act, Administrative Procedures Act. I always get the state and federal mixed up, but we do walk through that to the sections that specifically apply to the commission. And so we do walk through that. We don't go to the Legislative Administrative Rules Committee. That particular section does not apply to the Ethics Commission. So yes, but this is not for that process. I want to be very clear. We have funds currently in our budget that are an ongoing appropriation for the process of going through that, because that does cost. In fact, in our meeting that we are currently holding, we were just talking about that runs anywhere between $2,000 and $4,000 every time we adopt a rule. But this is for if the commission is adopting a rule, a lot of times there may be an IT component, or there might be something where we have to go and hire a contractor to create something in order to get the rule out there. So this is on top of the process. It's just what we had found during this last biennium is that the commission wanted to move forward with a rule, and we did not have the funds to ensure that we had the IT build out to do that.
And then Rebecca, as far as your budget, do you have any carryover funds? Do you know the number of carryover?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
$2,000?
we have approximately $2,000 left, and that goes back. We don't carry that over. That goes back to the general fund.
Okay. Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks.
Ms. Binstak, I have two questions, if I might. Can you give us an example of what a rule change would be that would drive an IT change? And then I have a second question.
Yeah.
Yep. Mr. Chairman and Representative Hansen, so a lot of it comes down to disclosures. So if you talk about ethics commission's rules across the country, the idea is to create more transparency, not restriction, so that if we are bringing in a new type of form, we then have to pay IT to create that form, to make sure that it's integrated with our website, and then we would also have to make sure that it's integrated with our key to date as the problem. The other thing is that if we are to be adopting a rule, we want to make sure that we have information out about that. And so hopefully if we get the education and communications person, they can take the lead, but they also might need resources to create things in order to do that.
And then my second question, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Binstak, is related to your professional fees request for $50,000. Given the increase in complaints just for this year, and then given the potential of litigation, I mean, $50,000 doesn't seem like it would go very far, and so I'm frankly a little surprised. It seems really low, but maybe you can manage it with the other things.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Hansen, so we did a best guess based on the data that we had. So we took what we spent this current biennium, it was just short of a biennium, I believe, and looked at how much we had spent, and then we projected that out over the next biennium. We're actually asking for less professional fees than we were last legislative session or last biennium because of the one-times that the legislature had to give us in order to not have a deficiency. I am similarly concerned that if we end up in litigation, that we may end up having costs in excess of this. I think this is an extremely, extremely conservative estimate on professional fees.
Representative Swantek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not an attorney, so I'm looking at the conflict of interest when it comes to the Attorney General, and I know you indicated that there might be certain situations where you can't use them. It depends on the case. They would be the one, and correct me if I'm wrong, they would be the one that would say, you know what, we do have a conflict of interest. Wouldn't they determine if there is a conflict? So if you were always going, so you could always go to the attorney, couldn't you, Attorney General, and have them do work and so forth, and they would come back to you and say, I have a conflict of interest, you're going to have to go to someone else. Am I looking at that wrong or?
Like go to them first, and then
Right.
if they say, then
What
you
am
go
I-
outside.
Right, so what am I missing?
Yep. Mr. Chairman and Representative Swantek, so it's a bit of a back and forth. It kind of goes both ways because there are complaints. Keep in mind that they're confidential, and so we may know the underlying facts regarding those complaints. And so we may not be able to share those with the Attorney General's office, and we might be able to address that conflict of interest. Now, the reason that we have a counsel in-house is because we realized that there was this inherent conflict of interest. There's also so the reason that the Attorney General is the Commission's attorney is a statutory provision. Okay? So the Ethics Commission is not part of the executive branch. So there is a statutory provision that says the Attorney General will provide legal services unless the Commission objects in certain instances. So there may be instances that the Commission may exercise that objection, based upon the facts or et cetera. But it generally will go both ways where there will be a discussion. That will come up not on a daily basis with complaints, but it will come up in litigation for sure.
So is this something you bring to the commission and they decide whether to use outside counsel, or is that your decision?
Mr. Chairman, let me think about that for a second. I'm trying to think of what we've done in the past to make sure. I believe I've taken it to the chair in the past, and it is the chair who is making that decision.
Representative Lauser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just, I guess, two more questions, and they're the two largest line items that we haven't discussed. The first is the new FTE, the communication and education FTE for 273. And if I recall it, you said that that would alleviate your workload about 33%, and it would alleviate the attorney's workload about 33%. And so where does that leave you and the attorney when we have stalled complaints? We're taking away some of your workload.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do with your time?
We get through complaints.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Lauser, so that's really reallocating our time so that because education is a really crucial thing, and we know that, and we do not want to sacrifice that. But what is going to end up happening is we need to be getting through complaints, and that has to happen. So the amount of workload for complaints, just complaints alone, is one attorney. But you have to keep in mind our general counsel is also providing general counsel services to the commission, is helping with rules adoption, issues advisory opinions. His caseload is not, his workload is not just complaints. And so we need to shift those resources or reallocate that to get that done. For me, that would greatly assist me. I'd be able to get a lot more things done and maybe work, not at midnight.
And for the record, I know that you do. The other question is just the $1 million base funding. So we've got these other items, but I went back and looked at what the ballot language was and what the vote was and what was said to the public, and I don't recall a discussion with the public being we're going to have a multi-million-dollar branch of government. It was 5 commissioners. That's really what I think the public voted on. And so how do I, when I carry the bill, how do I explain the $1 million that's in the base level outside of the other things that we've talked about today? What's included in the $1 million?
Mr. Chairman, you're asking me to go back and redo everything. So we obviously have operational costs. We have salaries. That makes up, our salaries makes up quite a bit of our $1 million right there, just with 3 people with benefits, making sure that we have the equipment that we have. We don't have a lot in our budget for travel the way that it currently is. I will say that I was working in the federal system when this measure passed, so I was not around in the state system. I didn't pay particularly close attention to what was presented, but when we look at other state ethics commissions, we ask ourselves, are we reaching the national de minimis standard, right? What other states, what 47 other states have ethics commissions, what they have and what they have as operating costs, et cetera. So we have some equipment. We do have a lease that we pay to the Capitol, we greatly reduced that from last session. It used to be around 55,000. We're now down to, Alicia knows the number off her top of her head. I think we're now down to 24,000. IT makes up quite a bit of that, that we also have IT costs. And then we have professional service fees. Honestly, those don't make up a huge bulk of it. The majority of it is going to be our salaries. You can see for the current biennium, you know, most of it was the salaries for 3 people.
Rebecca, I understand with the education communications FT we're talking about, and I understand the education and why you may want it, but along the lines of Representative Lauser, the complaint I hear from people that will call the office and say, hey, I have this scenario, is it yes or no? And the complaint is, from a lot of people I talk to, is I got the answer back was kind of gray. It was a milquetoast answer. I don't know if I can or can't. So I don't know what, I mean, you can educate me all you want, but if I don't have a black and white answer, you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
That's the frustration, because I've talked to several legislators who have, when they found out we had this bill here, hey, by the way, I called there and I asked, and I got virtually no answer. So I don't know how education handles that part. Maybe that's 2 issues, but you see what I'm saying? I would like to see more emphasis on trying to come up with an answer for somebody who calls than the education. But
Mr. Chairman, we understand that, and that is, so there's kind of 2 separate components. There is the education component that we want to make sure people understand the baseline rules. There is a lot of misconceptions, whether it's from a regulated person, somebody who we oversee, or a member of the public. And I think this comes down to the fact that for the first probably 3 years the commission was around, there was not a lot of public outreach. There was, in fact, very minimal.
There's very few complaints.
And there were also very few complaints, right? So I think COVID had some to do with that. I also think the commission was getting on its feet. That is a component of that. What you are referring to, I would call not education. It is a form of education, but it's more of this informal guidance. And we have to be very careful as the Ethics Commission. We are not all of your personal attorneys. And so we have to make sure that we are not providing you legal advice in that respect. So we can show you the rule, we can walk you through it, we can give you direction, but we can't help you make that ultimate conclusion.
But it's not legal advice if I want to know if it's yes or no. I mean, so you can educate me all I want, but I may interpret your education different than what your guys' intent is. You see what I'm saying?
I absolutely understand.
So how do we know whether, and I don't mean to be combative here, how are we supposed to know? You could educate me all day, but how do I know I can really do this? You know what I mean? So that's why we call you guys to say, hey, am I legal or not? I mean, that's what your education is meaning to tell us, right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's the goal. But yes, we also understand, and I have frustration too, that I need to be careful about how I word things because I am not your attorney, but I'm also a attorney. And so what the commission is well aware of this, right? Now, we do our best to walk people through a rule and say, here, you want to look at this definition, you want to do this, without telling them exactly what to do, okay? I understand that that's wishy-washy, gray, however you want to call it.
Seems like we're in a box.
100%, I understand. So what the commission has proposed, they're not talking about it today, but what rule that they have is actually what we are calling our informal decision rule or informal guidance rule. I don't want to say every other ethics commission has this, but the majority have this same type of thing where you can then call and ask that question, and pursuant to this rule, the commission can tell you yes or no. But it is pursuant to a rule that basically, I don't have the rule in front of me. I have a whole bunch of budget papers. This is a policy question, but it allows us to do that. And so that is one of the things that the commission is currently considering, not today. We'll be considering it in May. But that way, individuals can call, they can ask their question, and they can get a written response back, yes, no, maybe, depending on these things, and have a much more direct, but there needs to be a rule in place. So we've actually looked at what other ethics commissions do in that regard, and that is what they do. They provide they call it informal guidance. That's exactly what we are hoping to do.
And I appreciate you wanting to educate. I just question the value of the education because I'm going to read it and say, oh, I'm still going to call you guys, and can I do this rule? And then I get I don't know. Well, then why in the heck am I going through the education? You see what I'm saying? I mean, and everybody's going to say, okay, I'm not doing it because they're going to just they're going to be cautious and go on the no side, but.
So, Mr. Chairman, the combination of providing education so that you don't have to call, right, and that you can hopefully work through that on your own, that is the first step, right? And so the second step, though, is you've done this, you're still not sure, having that informal guidance rule in place then allows you to call us and we'll be able to provide you with a yes or no answer. And I think we're putting a turnaround of like 2 days or 72 hours or something on it because it has to be approved by the commission.
Representative Lauser, then Hanson.
I don't know how to frame this, but I'm going to do this from from the regulated community. If I were required to take a course, or if I was asked to take a course, whether I'm asked to drive to Bismarck to do it or somebody come to Minot, as a member of the regulated community, I would think you would be the one teaching the course. Like to me, you're the expert that I want to hear from. And if we hire somebody to do that, and it's not you or it's not general counsel, who am I going to be listening to? That person isn't in place now, but the ethics commission and the rules are. So I've been here longer than that person. I'm just wondering who that's going to, now I'm not saying the individual, but how do you qualify somebody if it's not you? Because you're the face right now for the regulated community. Who do you hire?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and Representative Lauser. So I would really like to not be the face for the regulated community.
You have
but
no choice.
That's why I framed it kind of the way
yes,
that I did.
I understand that, and I do think that, so how it is done in other ethics commissions, I think that's going to be the best. And I'm going to use Ohio. They've developed this system, and the individual who does their education, her name is Susan Wilkie. I can get her on. She also said that she would gladly testify for you guys and provide what she does. But she really works extremely closely with their executive director, Paul Nick. And they work very, very closely. And she has really developed, so she develops curriculum, meaning this is how we're going to present it. This is the pedagogy behind getting into people's minds, how this is going to be effective. But the executive director is still present for much of that. All of that material that is produced in an educational format that is all reviewed by their general counsel. So that is why the education person will work very closely with the general counsel and then with me. So it is really a development of, I don't have time, I wish I did. I don't have time to sit down and develop okay, this is going to be our strategy and this is how we're going to present it. And that is where that education and how we communicate is going to fall to that person. There is going to be, oh, sorry.
Well, and I want to address that specifically, because if I remember, you've done 26 or 28 classes already, so there is content.
There is some content. I am not going to, Mr. Chairman and Representative Lauser, say that it's fantastic content, because a lot of what we focus on in the world of ethics commissions is how do you get people to understand the information? Do you provide examples? Do you walk them through hypotheticals? How do you get them to interact with materials? It's the same thing that our teachers deal with on a daily basis to get students to uptick information. There's a whole host of information that we haven't even begun to tap into as to how you do that in the ethics commission world.
Representative Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually want to piggyback off of a little bit of what both you and Representative Lauser are talking about with the education role. So part of that role would be probably one-on-one education for the legislative branch and the rest of the regulated community, but would also that role be the public so that they understand, like, what is a complaint, like what qualifies, and it's not just that maybe a chairman was snippy with you or we voted wrong, or, you know, so they understand what's a complaint and who's.
Boy, I'd be getting a lot of those.
I know, it's all the time. It's probably a big bulk of the.
From you guys.
Mr. Chairman, we do tend to get those types of complaints. Not about you, but it has happened.
I don't doubt
But yes, that is a portion of it. So we break our education initiative into stakeholder groups. So who is the stakeholder at that particular moment? Is it somebody in the regulated community? Is it a legislator, or is it a board member who's sitting on a regulatory board. And then we next have the stakeholder group of the public. The one that people tend to forget about is educating the media. So having media understand why we can't answer questions about complaints, that sort of thing, that is also part of our educational. They are a stakeholder. And then we have lobbyists. And so addressing a lobbyist is much different than addressing a member of the public or the media or somebody in a different regulated community. So yes, all of that comes into this.
These education points, are they on your website so somebody can go and say, I'm thinking about doing a complaint. Let's go to the website and see if it qualifies. Do you guys have it on? I mean,
Mr. Chairman, yes.
a kind of Q&A thing or whatever?
Yep, we have a very in-depth FAQ page, and one of them is this a complaint, right? What do we actually do? So we have the FAQs, and then we also have an education tab, which includes our webinars, our flow charts for helping with ethical decision making, and we've really just gotten started on that sort of stuff. It's low production quality.
You need to send that out to the legislature. That might be helpful too.
Yep.
So, anything else along this line? Representative Swanton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, tying into what Representative Hansen said, do you have the ability that if somebody, public, files a complaint, that it's really not, it can be frivolous? Like, for example, if they say, I'm not happy with how they responded to my text, I'm not happy with how they talked to me over the phone, I'm not happy about their vote. Do you just say, you know what, that's not a complaint? And can you just say, no, we're not going to accept it?
Mr. Chairman, if somebody calls or emails us and asks that question, yes, we do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wondering. Thank you.
Yep. If somebody calls and says, hey, is this something you can hear? Then we say, you know, that's not within, and then we actually do the same thing. We walk them through the FAQs and what we do and don't do, and most of them can figure out that this isn't something.
So if
but if it's filed,
okay,
then they've already kind of, begun the process. And so what we try to do in those instances, if there is something that we know is frivolous that comes in, we try to hold the commission meeting, right? We have a commission meeting every month. So we hopefully, last session, we adjusted the time frame for notice from 21 to 30 days. So we have to notice a respondent, provide notice to a respondent if a complaint is filed against them. That used to be 21 days. So we would have to tell everybody that there was a complaint. But now we changed it to 30 days with the idea that hopefully there's a meeting, a commission meeting within that 30 days. And so usually what we do then is we send out, hey, a letter that says, hey, there was a complaint filed against you, but don't worry, we've already dismissed it. So that way we can do that in one letter, one notice, instead of two, and then somebody's worrying for a week about something that they may not even understand.
Representative Hansen, then Martin.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Binstock, I don't know if you were in the room, but Senator Tim Mathern presented some proposals for us to consider about additional FTEs to enhance your staffing. I'm not sure if you were in the room when that happened, but
Rebecca came in just at the beginning.
Okay, so in addition to the education person that is being considered in your budget, it would be 4 additional positions to enhance your work. So my first question is, what is your general opinion of this proposal, and 2, how would you prioritize those 4 positions?
No,
Alicia
got me a copy. Yep. Mr. Chairman and Representative Hansen, so if you look at what is labeled as the Projected Ethics Commission organizational chart, this is something that if you look at other ethics commissions, this is how they're organizational. This is nearly identical. All of them are set up this way. Unless they are part of the legislative branch, then there's a little bit of a different. But if we talk about constitutional ethics commissions, so I agree that this structure is generally the way that it's broke up. We thankfully have the ability to use HR from the executive branch and those sorts of kind of resources, so we don't need that. How we would prioritize this is how we are currently prioritizing it now with education. So education would be our first ask, and then all of the other things would follow thereafter. But if you Do you want me to prioritize those from there? Okay. So then education is our first ask. After that, once you add additional attorneys, you almost have to have that paralegal, but that paralegal function is very similar to some ethics commissions call it an investigator. I don't particularly like that term because it has that criminal connotation. So it's really a paralegal that's doing civil discovery. So once you have more than, 2-3 attorneys, having a paralegal is very helpful. And then obviously with the additional staff, then you have an administrative assistant. Ultimately, as we see filings, this administrative assistant type position is going to be something that we have to watch very closely because we have one person that's going to be managing filings. And so that is something that we're going to have to monitor very close. And if we need to add that person or even on a contract basis, have somebody helping out there, that's going to be really important. So.
Rebecca, I was just looking through my notes from the 18th. And forgive me for asking you for this question, but I know you were talking about the backlog, the complaint and control process. We went through all that. So we have a backlog of cases. I was meeting with the Attorney General on a different issue when we got done, and I had mentioned about our hearing, and I had said that you said you really didn't have the authority to close some of these cases. They told me you did. So is it just a different interpretation between you and the two offices, or just help us out with that?
Mr. Chairman, potentially it could have been. So it depends on what part of the process that you're in. And so if you are in the summary dismissal portion, yes, we have the authority the commission has the authority. In fact, the statute gives the executive director the authority.
I was going to say, is it the commission or executive director?
It comes to the executive director, but since I have taken over, I have not made that as a practice for me to unilaterally do that. I always do take it to the commission. The reason that I do that is really just a liability to make sure that they are well aware of what we are doing. So we go ahead and do it that way. That is a standard operating procedure that we've employed since I've been here. So once we move to the informal resolution, the statute specifically gives the ability to informally resolve something to the complainant and to the respondent. We function as a mediator in that particular section, right? Of the, how do you want to call it, of the process, right? We don't have the ability to say, yep, we're just going to close this out because we have to provide them, we are required to provide them.
So just
once we move, sorry.
Go ahead, I interrupted. Go ahead.
So once we move to the third stage, that is where we can close cases out. But there's a condition on that we then, in order to do that we have a report and a recommendation for the commission that needs to get drafted. And so it's not like we can just all of a sudden say, yep, I'm just going to dismiss this. There is a backlog or a work, something that has to get done. So I think it depends on, I don't know if I'd call it a difference of interpretation, but maybe just there's some kind of nuances to what we need to do in order to get that done.
So according to your interpretation, there's nothing in the law that gives you the ability to just say, we're done with this, let's move these out of here.
Mr. Chairman, I want to be very careful how I word this. There does, but we first need to issue that, come up with a report and recommendation, which does take the time. So we need to be able to draft that. There isn't something that allows us to close out a matter, say we're not going to do anything further with this, without issuing that report and recommendation.
Okay. There's not a timeline. There's not, I have to get it done within a certain amount of time.
Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
Okay. Right. Okay. Any questions for Director Binstock? I think she's been up there longer than she planned. So.
It's a trend.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming in. So, one other thing, Director. The new position one-time cost. Did we talk about that, Representative Wells, or did I miss that? The 5,400, 5,484? What does that pertain to? Did I miss that? Did you talk about it?
No, I don't think we did cover that.
It's under one-time funding, the last line. Yeah. New position, one-time cost.
Yeah.
So would that be, Rebecca, would that be connected to the education communication FTE we talked about?
Yep, it is.
Okay. All right. Okay. That all kind of. All right. What would that cover that we wouldn't cover up in the ongoing line?
It is going to be, I might have to refer to Alicia on this one.
I mean, why not the 5,484 all up in one line? I guess, or maybe Brady knows the answer. I don't know.
Yep. We don't need it, Mr. Chairman, we don't need it on an ongoing basis. That's why it's
Oh,
one
okay,
time.
okay.
And I think it relates to mostly office furniture and equipment and IT, initial IT
Well,
costs.
yeah,
that
we
will
have
be
office
set up.
furniture at 2348, but we have a new position one-time cost of 5484. I'm just curious what that is.
Yep, Mr. Chairman, so the office furniture, the separate line, that actually does not relate to the FTE. That is a separate, we don't have any storage facilities or storage area
Okay.
in our office. If you've ever been into our office, I think you have, there's not much there. So we need to be able to, put things in somewhere. So that's what that is. But as far as the one-times, I'm going to have Alicia come up and run you through those.
Good morning, Alicia.
Good morning, committee members. For the record, Alicia Meyer, Operations Administrator for the Ethics Commission. The one time for the new FTE, there is a $2,600 for office and equipment for a desk for them. There is $2,035 is that IT new FTE fee, and then we have $850 projected for a printer for them.
Okay,
So that's where that total comes from.
all right, I got it, thank you. All right. Okay, Representative Lau, is there anything else we
No,
need to?
that's the long sheet, Mr. Chairman.
That's the long sheet, okay.
There's not a
Anything
lot
else?
there.
Anything else, committee? All right, thank you, Rebecca, appreciate it. All right, committee, that should take care of it for the morning. We are going to come back here this afternoon after the floor. We have Jen Weber from Higher Ed, correct, Representative Sanford? We're talking about online programs and costs and revenue and all that good stuff. So, all right? All right, committee, we'll stand down and we'll come back at the call of the chair.
Okay, Logan, I think we'll do is wait till Rebecca gets back and then we'll decide how to proceed. While Rebecca's working back, let's take a, what do I want, 5-minute break? Okay, let's take 5 minutes, then come back. Logan, just make sure that Rebecca knows we're just on a 5-minute break. We'll be right back. Well done, Rebecca. That was a good show. Way to handle those questions.
Thank you.
I'm
looks like
here,
we're-
Dave.
Oh,
just
okay.
I'm just off camera.
Okay. So, I mean, when we were first started and took the break, I wasn't sure how long that would take for the hearing. We are at a point now, we talked about delaying the executive session, but do we want to go into the executive session? Because that's what's next on our agenda. Thoughts or Rebecca, because of the hearing, are there things you'll have to do, need to break away? So what are everyone's thoughts? Or Rebecca, what do you think?
No, we're good in Bismarck, right? I guess I shouldn't speak for everybody.
Okay, so commissioners, are we okay with going into executive session and continuing our meeting?
Sounds fine to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then. The next item on the agenda are complaint numbers 22-003 through 22-010, 23-011, 23-013, 23-014, 24-014, 24-034, 25-004 through 25-020, 25-023 through 25-037, 25-040, and 25-041. Hereinafter referred to as the complaints. This item must be discussed in executive session. The legal authority for closing this portion of the meeting is North Dakota Century Code, Chapter 5466-12, Section 1, North Dakota Century Code, Chapter 5466-12, Section 3, and North Dakota Century Code, Chapter 44-04-19.2, Section 1. The topic or purpose of this executive session is discussion on the complaints, and the information regarding the content and parties of complaint to the Ethics Commission is confidential. A complaint must be discussed in executive session. No motion is needed to enter executive session. The executive session will be recorded, and all members of the governing body are reminded to limit their discussion during the executive session to the announced topic. Any collective decision, collective commitment, or other final action by the governing body must occur after it reconvenes in an open meeting. The prohibition on taking final action during the executive session does not apply to providing guidance or instructions to our attorney. We will now ask the members of the public who are attending the meeting to leave the meeting. We anticipate adjourning the executive session and reconvening the open portion of the meeting at approximately, any guesses there?
Say an hour, 12:15.
Let's go
Okay.
with Logan.
Okay, go 12:15. The minutes will show that the executive session began at 11:14 and was attended by Commissioners Ron Goodman, Ward Kozer, Cynthia Lindquist, Murray Sagsveen, and Dave Anderson, along with Executive Director Rebecca Binstock, General Counsel Logan Carpenter, and Operations Administrator Alicia Meyer, along with Legislative Intern Patrick Fries. Okay. I guess we are ready to go into executive session.